Hey Rajorshi, welcome to WebEngage. Thank you so much for taking out your time and agreeing to do this. For all the listeners, a quick introduction about myself. My name is Chirag. I lead the content marketing and special projects teams here at WebEngage. Rajorshi, if you could just introduce yourself to our users, to our listeners. What's the background you come with and what do you do currently? That would set some tone and some context for the conversations that we're going to have going forward.
Right. So thank you, Chirag, for having me. We interacted last time during the 30th to 30, back in April 22. And it's a good time. We met briefly, but we have had a few more conversations over emails discussing different projects and use cases. So I'm coming from a computer science background, having a few years of work ex in IT. I then transitioned into a managerial work in marketing post my MBA. And currently I'm working as a product manager in BlueStone. And mostly I'm the guy who's handling retention as a activity or business part for our organization, along with my teammates who are like also pretty talented. And thanks to them, like we make this a success.
Awesome, awesome. So you mentioned, right, your career started from IT to MBA to getting into Bluestone and getting into retention. Now, I understand that most B schools don't teach retention from day one, right? That's not a part of the curriculum. How did you end up into retention?
So funny thing, I actually applied for the role of a product manager for Bluestone, and I got into that role. But there was this one opening. My manager said to me like, "Hey, there's this particular domain that we are currently exploring, and it's at the initial stage for us. So would you like to explore?" I thought, okay, might be a good opportunity to learn something new. And without thinking twice, I said yes. Okay, then I got introduced to the world of retention. Okay, this is a whole different ballgame. As you rightfully mentioned, in these schools, they don't really focus on retention per se. It's more about strategy, uh, customer acquisitions, then marketing promotions, those kind of things. We do learn in V school that retention costs significantly lesser than acquisition, maybe like several times as less. It varies from different people, but we do know this as a fact, but we never really implement it. So getting a hands-on the field and how retention is was a different thing altogether. And that is probably, I'd say, I thank BlueStone for the opportunity to work on this, and WebEngage is a platform to make learning this so easy.
I know, I mean, getting paradropped into this role for the first time, getting this opportunity from Bluestone and then ending up becoming a 30 under 30 award winner. I mean, that's so crazy. Like, so without everything, you learned everything from scratch, then delivered, and then like outperformed everybody's expectations, right? So, if somebody aspires to become Rajorshi tomorrow, right, wants to become a retention rock star, how would somebody get started?
How would somebody get started? When I started working with retention, there's one thing how we are working on all the different journeys that we take. Say, for instance, a customer is in a different stage of a journey of the buying cycle. So I think learning consumer behavior is a very crucial aspect of understanding the buyer persona and how they would like to interact with your. I'm from an e-commerce, so how they would like to interact with your e-commerce website, how they would like to consider different things. So this particular understanding the different stages a customer is in, and then mapping them to actionables is something I would say would be a good game changer. If you understand how the consumer behaves and then you map it in a certain events and then take it forward, it will implement all these different customer journeys.
Awesome. So, a part or one of the paths to success in customer retention would stem or start from understanding consumer behavior.
Yes.
Right. Super. So, obviously, since retention wasn't your primary forte, and from learning retention to outperforming, right, there's been a massive learning curve for you. If there were one thing that you could go back in time and teach your earlier self, very early on in your career, something that you could learn, what would that be?
There's business outcomes are somewhat derived from decisions. So you take decisions. There's always a trade-off whether to take this or take that, and always have to validate your ideas, whether the thing that you actually thought should work is actually working or not. So decision making is something as a skill, I would say, which one should really focus on, even when even in their undergrad or even in B school. That is something which could give you an edge. So if I had to learn or had to restart, I would say be concrete about how to make decisions. Uh, when you see in the customer behave a certain way, you have to take a decision whether to engage in them in that part of the journey, or maybe at a later stage what seems to be better. And also you have to validate whether when you actually did the intervention, did it actually achieve the desired outcome. So decision making is something I would really say would be set apart. So
So when you talk about decision making, is that on the basis of your past experiences, or is that purely on the basis of data, or it's a mix of both?
so experience is very comes handy in trying to form the decisions, but I would say data is definitely the key to enabling, validating your ideas. So yes, data driven decision making is most certainly the bread and butter for me at the moment as well. So I have to take a call on whether or not uh, a particular campaign is working, and these decisions that I've taken, whether they're actually correct. So data is there, right? I can use some of my experience to understand whether which decision to take. Okay. And also maybe study the current industry and trends and understand what has been going on in the market. But data is always there. I use it to validate whether the decisions are correct or not.
Fair enough. So, but by now, after all the numerous number of campaigns you've run, you must have reached a stage where you can blindly say, "Hey, this is going to work. This is not going to work." Or do you still rely on data?
I still rely on data, because no matter what I say, if consumer behaviors are the subject to change. Recently, during COVID times, there was a massive shift in the demand. People, instead of going out, they decided to order things in. Right, e-commerce saw a huge boost in that time frame, and people keep changing their decisions. Right, they change their mind. Now the trend has changed a bit again. Say 2 years since the lockdown. So what is what was true to some time ago, 2 years ago, is not true anymore. So I always learn data, constantly A/B testing, constantly trying to leverage what other sources of data I have, then trying to validate my ideas. That's really always there.
Interesting that you mention the dynamic nature of consumers, right?
Yes,
Behaviors keep changing.
behaviors keep changing.
Industries keep changing. The retention marketing as a concept never existed until 4 5 years ago, right? Things are new, which, when a lot of variables are constantly changing, brings about a lot of challenges. Now, these challenges could come in terms of processes, in terms of people, in terms of personal limitations, right? If you could change one thing about all of these three parameters that I just spoke about, what would you change that will unlock growth for you and for the company that you're working for?
I would say uh, getting a bit closer to the customer. Ga- as I mentioned earlier, that as consumer behavior keeps tends to change over time, I think the processes for gathering the data and for monitoring and understanding how they change, that needs to be constantly revamped. So what's working today might not work tomorrow. That's why what I kind of feel is what's important for the business to leverage to the next level. So that was what I would like to I think.
Absolutely. And I agree to you completely. So most companies, they rely on zero party and first party data, right?
Yes.
What they fail on doing is they should marry this data to probably second party and third party data as well. That's when you get a completely holistic view of your customers. And and the decisions that you take on the basis of this data are going to be completely different than what consumers are doing on your website. Right? So I totally agree to that. And with that, I come to the next part of this segment, where we usually do this offline. We meet people, we pop beers, and then I ask questions and then chug. But since we're doing this online, we'll do this in a very never have I ever fashion. We'll raise hands if you've done it. We raise our hands if you've not done it, right? Uh, so first question. Never have I ever created a failed campaign and then blamed it on others. Want to share some insight on why it happened?
Okay, so as we are from a jewelry brand, we have different timelines, like different peak seasons for us. And for that, what happens is we send out blast communications to all our customers, broadcast messages. So sometimes what happens is as we target a huge segment of our customer base, uh, we set the journey for these selected set of customers. But as the volume is so much, a lot of our channels, they start to clog up and messages start fail delivery. So I think it should have been on my end to have a foresight about this and make necessary adjustments beforehand. But I tend to blame the vendor as to, like, sorry, their API is failing. We can't depend this.
I was expecting more like, blaming the creative team or the copywriting team, but okay, I'll take this one on our behalf.
Not you, but sometimes it does happen. Like API rate limits are there. So based on that, we have to sometimes initially, this was at the very early stage. I didn't really know that there were so many other levels of complexity beyond the platform itself, right? So those things were not known to me at that time. That I think that was just why my later incident. Like, other than that, mostly I've taken care of it.
Super. So coming to the next question. Now we've spoken about failed campaigns. Never have I ever sent a campaign with failed personalization tags.
Oh, oh, yeah, I have.
All guilty of it. As marketers, if you've not sent, hey, gibberish, comma, you're not a marketer, right? So what is that? I'll share blame on that.
Definitely.
Never have I ever tweaked my reports to save my ass.
No, I didn't take chances on this. Didn't take, never. All the numbers are accurate. If if the campaigns are performing negative, it's negative. Positive, it's positive. Okay, I take the blame for that. I've never tweaked the numbers. Never have I ever.
So interestingly, 100% of our 30 under 30 winners have given that exact same answer. Never fudged their reports in any way. Not even like a 0.1%.
No.
So that's like an interesting trait. So if you don't fudge numbers, that's one of your hints or universe giving you signs that, hey, you could be the next 30 under 30 winner. So coming to the next question, never have I ever sprayed a campaign to achieve my month-end numbers. I know the answer to this, but
so festival season, we have to do it. It's a broadcast message that we send out daily. So yes, done it. But to achieve targets, not really, because for me it's more of a experimental kind of a thing of using WebEngage to get incremental numbers instead of just meeting my numbers. So for that, I would say, like, partially I'm to play half of it.
Conditionally you do spray, but otherwise you're in the good zone. You're like the good boy of retention. And coming to the last, never have I ever picked a bone with my manager because he asked you to run a stupid or a campaign that did not make sense to you. Current company or previous organization?
Current.
Nice. So we'll leave it at that. I won't put you on the spot to explain what happened, why it happened. Happens with everybody. It happens with me as well. So yeah, with that said, Rajorshi, it was an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for taking out your time. I hopefully will see you offline really soon. We'll pop beers really soon. But until then, do take care. I wish you all the best for your career and for connecting with you soon.
Thank you so much, Chirag.
Thanks. Have a nice day.
You too.